welcome to today's video. Today, as you can see by the title and thumbnail, we're going to be focusing all on Formula One sprint races. Sprint weekends differ opinions within the F1 community and even within the F1 drivers and pundits. Some people like them, some people hate them. In this video, I'm going to provide my opinion as well as what I would change to the sprint format in order to make it more beneficial for the fans and the teams. Yes, I understand Stefano Domenicali's want for more racing action on a Formula One weekend, but you also can't take away from those hardcore fans that have been there forever, those that have been through previous changes that haven't worked and are still here today. These changes that have been made to implement sprint weekends hinder and also offer too much information for a race weekend. With the current setup how it is, you have current drivers like Alex Albon admitting that the sprint race turns into a bit of a test session. It's a way for them to test out their first stint, it's a way for them to see how the tyres degrade and even split strategies within the sprint race, which may not be beneficial during that race, but it will be for the Sunday. Although the current format is better than the previous format created by Formula One, this current format provides opportunities for teams to be disqualified, as we saw in Austin with Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Being unable to properly test their cars and properly set the cars up means that you have things like plank wear becoming an issue, which hasn't been an issue for the past 30 years. You still have the same issues with tyres and teams not having enough tyres, like we saw in Brazil with Lewis Hamilton and the likes of Esteban Ocon, who lost a medium tyre through no fault of their own during practice one. The current format is as followed. On the Friday, you have practice and qualifying for the main race on Sunday. On the Saturday, it is a full sprint day. You have the sprint shootout in the morning and the sprint race in the afternoon. And then on Sunday, you have your standard race. Although the current format this season offers two more competitive sessions for the fans to watch at home and at the grandstands, it also offers too much insight into the first stint of the race. While having sprint races is good for the fans and it offers more competitive sessions, it also makes the race less competitive. You can see on the Saturday afternoon in the sprint race what is going to happen. You can see whether Red Bull are flying, whether Mercedes are in with a chance. You can see what is going to happen and you are already prepared for that for the next day. There's no shocks about how a tyre might last. There's no shocks about tyre performance, there's no shocks about car performance or even driver performance, because that all gets seen on the Saturday within the sprint race. If I was in charge of Formula One and I was Stefano Domenicali, I have a range of things which I would like to change. Those are the weekend format, the drivers, and a potential for a sprint championship. A sprint championship would offer a wide range of opportunities for all drivers and teams to win a bigger prize pool. If Formula One could get the sprint races and sprint qualifying sessions sponsored by an outside party, it could provide teams with bigger budget caps. It could provide them with more wind tunnel time and ATR time and stuff like that. This would then give each team an incentive to not use it as a test session and to work as hard as they can in each race. Although some may argue that drivers already race to the limits in these sprint races, I would argue that on occasion, drivers hold back, leaving overtakes on the table because they're not in with the chance of points. Within the sprint championships, I would argue that every driver on the grid from first to last gets a point so long as they finish the race at minimum. That way, you have a setup where every driver gains out of being in the sprint championship. All points from the sprint championship will also go to the drivers championship and the constructors championship, but it'll be on its own for the sprint and provide a sprint prize at the end. Another idea of mine is drivers. I think that Formula One should implement that all Formula One teams have to have a Formula 2 and a reserve driver drive their sprint races. Some people might not agree with this, but I think this would be a good way to show a development championship and to show which Formula 2 drivers, which reserve drivers deserve a seat in Formula 1 in the coming years. An example of this would be Mercedes could have Frederick Vesti and Mick Schumacher take their seats for the sprint Saturday in order to give them the best opportunity of points. Along with the drivers in the sprint championships, I think that Formula 1 and the teams should all come together and make an agreement. The winner of the Formula 1 sprint championships, if it was to happen, would earn a guaranteed seat for a year in the future. That way that these drivers don't feel like they're just driving these sprint races just because they have to. That way the teams have a right and a reason to develop these drivers into top class Formula One drivers. It also provides the opportunity for drivers like Liam Lawson, Yuma Owasa, Frederick Vesti, Oliver Bearman, and all these drivers to get the opportunity to drive a Formula One car in a proper race situation rather than just a practice one session. The way in which I would format the weekend is pretty similar to how we have it now, but it would be slightly different. On the Friday, I would introduce a 2-hour practice session. That way, you give all the teams all the chance they need to set up the car properly and not have the issues like what we saw in Austin with Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, where the plank overwore. Later on the Friday, you would have the qualifying for the main race. This would be a simple qualifying session like we currently have, and we would leave it on the Friday. This is where my major change is. On the Saturday, because of my idea to implement reserve drivers and Formula 2 drivers to the F1 Sprint Championship grid, what I would do is I'd offer a 1-hour practice session in the morning, a sprint qualifying session, how it is now, in the afternoon, and then the sprint race later in the evening. This 1-hour practice session could be reduced to half an hour. It would be purely for the Formula 2 and the reserve drivers to get a footing with the car and understand the package that they're driving. After a few sprint weekends, the drivers will understand this, so this could start off at an hour at the start of the season and reduce as the season goes on, therefore not forcing too much onto the cars. And then finally, Sunday and race day. As normal, just what you'd expect. Normal race, no problems, just a change of tyres or two, and then that's it. As a result of my changes to a Formula One sprint weekend, I would offer each team an extra tyre of each compound, one hard, one medium, one soft. I would also offer each team an extra component for electrics, gearbox, exhaust systems, engines, extra component for everything to reduce the penalties and the factors of them saying no to this idea. I think that my changes would make sprint weekends 10 times more interesting. I think that having reserve drivers and F2 drivers give themselves an opportunity to prove to teams that they deserve a seat would be very interesting to watch, and I think it would show us whether the next generation are as good as previous Formula One drivers. Please let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are about sprint weekends and what you would like to see change. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.